Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I'm here to talk about the latest episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. Before I do, I want to remind everyone about my Teespring store. If you go there, you can get channel merch, such as shirts with the channel logo on it, shirts with other designs. I'm also working on a hat. And anything you buy there, of course, helps support the channel, and I really appreciate it. The link is in the description. So, this latest episode was called Hear All, Trust Nothing. And as it begins, Captain Freeman is unexpectedly assigned to engage in some diplomacy, which she's not happy about because she doesn't have any prep time. And it turns out that the rendezvous point for this diplomacy is Deep Space Nine, which is glorious. They really showed off the outside of the station. They sort of mimicked the opening sequence of Deep Space Nine during this part. And it was funny because the captain said, "Oh, I need time to prepare, even if it's just a few minutes." So the first officer was like, "Well, let's just fly around the station really slow, make it look like we're admiring the pylons." So they do that for like a few seconds. And as they're doing it, they show an exterior shot of the station and you hear, and then they go back on the ship. And he's like, yep, keep flying. And they go back to the thing. So it was pretty funny. Somebody mentions at about this point that Quarks is now a franchise. It's not just the one bar on the station, which is cool. We've kind of seen that before, though, I think, like on Picard, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, while the other ensigns are excited to go to DS9, Mariner doesn't want to. So her girlfriend invites her to hang out with her and her friends who are going to be having a salon. Don't really understand what that is, but we'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. Mariner, though, decides that's worse than going to Deep Space Nine with her friends, and she just tries to beg off. Like, well, I have to go even though I don't want to because these guys will get lost. And they're like, no, we won't. We have maps. So she ends up having to go with her girlfriend. We then see that Nana Visitor is in this episode voicing Colonel Kira, which was unexpected, but very cool. The thing is, though, she wasn't in her Starfleet uniform. She was in her Bajoran uniform, and she had joined Starfleet at the end of the series, so I don't know what happened there. But it was just great to have her. And it turns out, of course, that she knows Shax. And they end up bickering about who owes the other one. I owe you one. And not from the standpoint of, hey, you owe me one still, but from the standpoint of, well, I really owe her one because she saved my life. And she says, no, I owe you one because you saved my life. And then they end up arguing about who saved whose life last because they each want to be the one that owes the other one. So it's very funny. We then, of course, see that Armin Shimmerman is also in this episode. And he talks about Quark talks about how he's created a franchise, and he inquires as to whether it might be possible to put a Quarks at Starfleet Academy, which is very funny. I don't think he sounded quite like Quark. I don't know why that is, just being out of practice for so long at the part, being older. I'm not really sure. They did, it seems, have him wear the teeth, the Ferengi teeth, because he sounds like he was wearing the teeth, which is very funny. Just picturing him in the booth with the teeth on. But it didn't sound quite like Quark, but it was just great to have him there and doing the voice. BOIMLER goes off to play some Dabo, and while he's doing that, an Orion officer from the station notices Tendi, who's sitting with Rutherford at Quarks, and he pretty much strong arms them into going on a tour of the station with him, although Rutherford was a little more enthusiastic about it than Tendi was. Mariner meets her girlfriend's friends, and they're all making candles and doing girl stuff, and two of them tell her that they think BOIMLER's hot, which she means that she needs to drink more because she is mind blown by that concept, I guess. As the captain meets with the delegation that she's supposed to engage in diplomacy with, who, by the way, brought some kind of bomb on the station in case they don't like how things go, Shax and Kira continue to bicker over who's the more grateful one. Or who they want to be the one that owes the other one, so they're bickering about it still. Meanwhile, Boimler seems to be winning quite well at Dabo. When Tendi gets a reprieve from the Orion guy in the form of orders from the captain to move some stuff from, I guess, the CERRITOS or the station onto the delegate's ship, it's a short-lived reprieve because it turns out that the Orion guy was assigned to provide security for her in Rutherford for the whole day. Back to Mariner, as I said, the girls are holding a salon, which I guess is a thing where you offer different performances, be they poetry or some kind of physical performance. And one of them does a little exercise in a maroon jumpsuit that she calls the Kobayashi Maroon, which is funny. When the captain brings the delegation to meet with Quark, hoping he'll talk up the commerce opportunities in the Alpha Quadrant, he gets upset and takes issue with the head of the delegation for how his people behaved during the Dominion War, which Quark, I guess, didn't find very helpful. The delegation, in turn, takes issue with Quark's branded replicator, and they knock it over and use the bomb that they brought with them, which is apparently some type of EMP, to shut power down not only on the station, but also in the CERRITOS, which is docked there, followed by them kidnapping Quark. But the power outage doesn't stop Boimler from winning one more round of Dabo as the wheel settles into a winning spot for him just as the power goes out, which is hilarious. When Mariner's girlfriend's friends freak out and act like a bunch of crazy people, Mariner tries to handle it diplomatically. But her girlfriend says, no, it's okay, go crazy and rip them a new one because they're insufferable sometimes. So she starts stunning them all. They were freaking out that there was no power, that they thought life support was off or would soon be unavailable, that with it off, the oxygen would deplete. So they're kind of freaking out. They couldn't get out of the room because the doors wouldn't open. And she's trying to be like, no, let's calm down. We'll figure out something. And her girlfriend's like, no, just stun them all. So it's pretty funny. Over on the delegation's ship, Tendi's had about all she could take of the other Orion guy being all smarmy and stuff. And she goes off on him, which he finds terribly insulting. But since Tendi and Rutherford are on the delegation's ship where they were delivering goods, they end up being stuck there as the ship goes through the wormhole after kidnapping Quark. When it turns out that the other Orion guy was just faking being cool and faking being like of Orion pirate stock and can't actually help Tendi and Rutherford, to get out of the storage room that they were locked in, Tendi steps up and kicks a bunch of ass because apparently her family were pirates. And she ends up preventing the ship from going through the wormhole long enough for Deep Space Nine to recover enough power to track the ship back. It was a really cool scene. She grabs the other guy's like pirate tool that he was allowed to carry with him on duty as a religious exemption, even though it's a pirate thing. And she basically uses the crap out of it in various ways to get them out of the situation. It was very cool, actually. It turns out that Quark wasn't so much kidnapped as arrested because he had used some of the delegates' people's technology in his proprietary replicators without permission. The captain gets him out of going to prison, though, by pretty much forcing him to give the delegation's people 76% of his franchise's profits, which I think was a little excessive. Anyway, he is not happy about that. Boimler, who has won a pile of Latinum, ends up accepting a gift certificate for Quark's store instead of his actual Latinum winnings because Starfleet doesn't use money anyway. I thought this was a good episode. I didn't think it was fantastic. I think the Quark stuff, a lot of it fell flat. It wasn't as funny as the writers thought it was, I think. But, it was okay. I didn't think the stuff with the Orion guy was all that great either, because they wanted you to feel Tendi's discomfort at this guy being all smarmy, but I didn't really feel it. Like I could see where, okay, he was annoying, but she really got pissed, and I didn't really get that. But it was cool, like I said, in the end, to see her kick ass when he waffled. I thought the Boimler winning at Dabo was hilarious, and it was cool to see Mariner interacting with her girlfriend. We really hadn't seen that. And it was cool to, again, this week, see her kind of try to be level-headed and not immediately resort to her sort of cantankerous, boisterous ways to solve a problem. So that was cool. As much as I don't think Quark really sounded like Quark, it was great having Armin Shimmerman on the show. It was great having Nana Visitor back. That was so cool. And the whole bit where she was arguing with Shax because they each wanted to be the one that still owed the other one was very funny. The sequence at the beginning where they were flying around Deep Space Nine was awesome. So I thought this was a good episode. Not stellar, but it had some really great moments. So there you have it. That's my review of the episode. I'm going to take off. I'll be back to review the next episode once it is released. Until then, I wish you peace and long life.